will have a great impact on our community. We've been talking, we've seen what COVID-19 did all across the world. We've seen and we are still, how will I say, we're still trying to recover from all the experiences of COVID-19 that we had. And in doing that, we've heard about the research being led by one of our own from the University of Glasgow, trying to look at, the challenges, the concerns, and even the experiences we have regarding COVID-19 from our community, in order to what? In order to help decision makers, policy makers, to see how they can, how they can enhance the policies that will help our community. So today, I've got with me as my guest no other person than hello guest.
Hello. Hi, Doctor. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, can you just tell the listeners at home your name, who you are, and just a bit of a bio?
All right. Thank you so much. So I'm Dr. Josephine Adekola. I'm one of the lecturers at the University of Glasgow, and my work is on risk management. And over the years, over since the pandemic, I've been looking specifically the African and Caribbean communities and trying to understand our experiences, our perception, and the things that are of concerns to us. So ultimately, I'm trying to make sure that people understand us for who we are, and just people understand they get us or they understand us.
Good, good. Glad to hear that. So, I know the last time we had you on the program as a guest, that was still the time when we were trying to get out of the pandemic fully, and the research was starting at that point. So, where are we with the research now? Where are we now?
Okay, so we made a lot of progress since I was on your show, Doctor. I think that was sometime last year.
Yeah.
So when I was on your show the last time, we were looking at that was the first stage of the research where we were looking at people's perception of COVID and if they were going to take the vaccine or not, and also we were interested in how people source for information and how they of the information that they are getting, from social media, from the TV, the radio, from both scientists and not scientific and non-scientific sources. Now, that particular research, was so has been helping the policymakers to understand who we are and how we get information and how we think about COVID and also how we think about vaccination. But more importantly, some of the most, the key influential factors that influence how we think about these things. So I've been attending the vaccine inclusion and equality teams meetings regularly. At least we meet. I think sometime last year we were meeting every 2 weeks, but now we meet month. And I think because we are now out of the emergency stage, the meeting is kind of extended. The meeting time has kind of increased rather. So we typically meet at least once a year just to share learning across different parties, from both the academics, the practitioners, and also from members of the public. Now, that research has gave birth to another research, which was the second stage of the work we did earlier this year, looking and that particular piece of work was instigated by the public health that, that that there was, hesitancy across the different doses. So some people would take the first dose and would refuse to come forward for the second dose, and some people would take the second one and would not even come for the third one. As at today, the disparity across doses is significant across communities. And if we look at it from the third dose of the vaccine, the difference in the Caribbean and the white ethnic group in Scotland is almost 30% difference. So for 41%, only 41% of the population have taken at least three boosters of the 19 vaccine, when compared to 75% of the white ethnic group. So the Scottish government was keen to understand why, while somebody will take the first dose and wouldn't come for the second dose. or why they would take the second dose and wouldn't want to take the full booster. And that was what the second stage of the research was all about. And we're currently analyzing our data with some fantastic insights. I want to share with you today. I'm just trying to give you an overview.
Okay.
But ultimately, one of the reasons for the hesitancy across those is experiences that people are having. A lot of people have reported that they've not had any negative experience, but a lot of people at the same time have reported very negative experience, and that seemed to be having a lot of impact on whether people went back to take another dose or not, or people just decided that look, I've had enough. I've taken two, I've done my own part, and I'm not taking it again. So there have been so many interesting reasons which we are finding. Now we're also carrying out a third part, which is trying to answer all the questions that people have asked my research team so far. And my research team has grown. It started with me, and now we're four of us, so which is fantastic. It shows that the research is getting funded, and what we're trying to do with this research is all about the document. It's all about producing a film. And what I'm trying to do with this particular film is to try to answer all the questions that people have thrown at my research team since the first stage of the research. So what I done in the early part of this year, stage of the research, and go through the current research I'm doing and kind of articulate all the have. And what I'm trying to do with the documentary is to try to get answers to those questions. But as part of that, we are also hosting three face-to-face community discussion, and my mind has been blown out by what we found out from this community discussion. And the breadth of issues that were discussed at this meetings, was something else, and it was just an eye opener, to a lot of issues that are facing the community.
Okay. Yeah. I mean,
Interest.
good. I mean, I know you've given us a lot there. And what I just want to do now is that, yes, with everything you've done, I mean, the phase at which I think I mean, I've seen out there that you're now, this one you call the community experts discuss COVID-19 challenges, concerns, and experiences regarding COVID-19. And I think we've had the Edinburgh and the Glasgow one. I don't know if the Aberdeen one has been announced yet, the date. But the question I want to ask is that, so if we start from the part of the challenges, from the two discussions you've had so far, what challenges have been most indicative?
Wow. I mean, the issues that have come up, you know, the way I will categorize it as two different levels. They are the deep people have highlighted to be some of the issues they're experiencing, and that is impacting whether they took COVID-19 vaccine or not. But there's also the other secondary issue as well. And the deep rooted issues, is related to things like the health system and how it treats people. So, for instance, people suggesting that, oh, their GP is not answering their question, or people being asked to provide their visas, people being asked of their visa status, at the GP services, or not being spoken to in a way that you feel discouraged to go back. Those are the issues around the health system that was highlighted. The issues around, the social economic issues around unemployment, or underemployment, that also came up, during the pandemic. A lot of our people are on 0 hour contracts, and during the lockdown, because there were no jobs for them to do, they suffered a lot of financial stress. And again, because they are also on no recourse to public fund, it means that they didn't have any universal support or any support from the government at all. So they rely completely on charity. And you can imagine what that would be, or what that would feel a father or a mother. If it's only yourself, it could be manageable. But when you're looking after, the children or people who are dependent on you, that could be a very significant issue, and it could have a very devastating impact on your mental health and well-being as well. So those issues did come up. And we did get a sense that people don't want the government to come and just talk about vaccine, whether people took vaccine or not. They wanted the government to dive deep other priorities, that are kind of stressing people in the community and not just vaccine.
All right. Does this suggest that this research is actually taking us even deeper into the issues or challenges faced by the African and Caribbean community in Scotland?
Yes. And specifically the community discussion. I wasn't expecting it. I was just going to do research, but the breadth of issue that these emotions that came through that, it changed everything for me. So for me, this is not like this is more like a movement, but that we need to do something here because issues that people talked about, it seemed as if the vaccine was a very minor issue to them. So there were issues that were raised around the vaccines and people wanting more information, people wanting more clarity about what the science is saying and the data is saying. But that, from the discussion we've had and the analysis I've carried out of the two community discussion, it seemed to me that those issues are secondary. And what I keep saying to people, that if you keep coming to African communities and keep talking about just vaccines, they are not going to listen. You need to do more. You need to be addressed. People need to see it. I mean, you need to be seen to be concerned about other issues that are affecting the community, not just vaccines. So when you go into the African and Caribbean communities, you also need to touch on health issues. You need to think about the visa and the immigration and the other policies and how that is affecting how people engage with healthcare services or not. So those are some of the discussion we are having. And the good thing is that they are listening. In fact, I just with them yesterday. Three of them, three head of units, wanting to know what they should do.
Okay.
And the answer to that is easy. It's not something that one side of the government can answer. Because the breadth of the issues that came up, it's not a matter for just one. In fact, I've actually asked to speak to Nicola Sturgeon about this because we need somebody. We need to be speaking to somebody that has power and authority to answer the questions that we want to answer.
All
Because
right.
when you speak to this person, this person is dealing only with information about vaccine, and this person is dealing with. I said no. I mean, with a higher level of authority that can provide us answers. I mean, if you genuinely care about the community and whether we took vaccine or not, you need to genuinely care about these broader issues as well.
Right. Well, it's interesting to hear that, and I mean, some of I mean, I know I was at the Glasgow event, and I believe one of the things mentioned also borders around uh, all those whatever the government says they provide for in terms of public funds or child payment and those things, and having to listen to people saying that even though this is there, we don't qualify for it because of what we earn. And one thing that was interesting earlier, you said you've had to speak with Nicola Sturgeon about this.
No, no, I
Uh,
haven't spoken
oh,
yet.
not yet. Okay, okay, not
Yes.
yet. Have you spoken with the health secretary at all, Umzo Yusuf?
Is it, no, no, I'll be speaking to him sometime in the summer. We have an event that we'll be discussing.
Okay. Well, I know, I mean, I know you are research focused, but I know for those listening out there, I mean, for those who are community leaders, those who are political leaders, politicians, I mean, especially in the African Caribbean the Caribbean community, because many people always want to put the two communities together, and I always say that, the African community and the Caribbean community. The truth is, I guess you must be advising them it's time for them to come together and talk together in one voice to the government, don't you think?
Yes, it's really time. But one of the things I think the African community in Scotland seem to be Caribbean community is really small compared to the African community. So if you look at the two communities, the African community dominates in terms of the black population in Scotland. So, but it's really time for us to come together and discuss and see what we can individually do because everybody has something to contribute, right? You can contribute from the political space or from the media, I can contribute from the academic space in certain aspects. Somebody else can contribute in different areas. So nobody's contribution is too small. You know, we all contributing at different levels, and we're affecting different set of people at different time at different scales. So we come together and agree, to see and to discuss, to continue this discussion we've started having. I think that has been so useful,
Right.
to knowing what we want to do next, and even to sharing, advising one another. If you remember, there was a lady in the Glasgow event that was talking about the need for Africans to join the board, for you to
Yeah.
join the advisory board, for you to join that. Typically most people wouldn't see that, but I've been in a lot of decision rooms, that if I weren't there, the outcome would have been completely different. So those,
Absolutely.
those kind of advice, they are so important, and we need to continue this kind of community discussions to for us to try to understand what the problems are. And the issue here is not that it's not an issue of competition. No, but every single person has something to contribute, and we need to. And it's important that we don't criticize very badly. Like, if I don't like what you're doing, dog, I have to be by you, because I know you're also facing your own pressures.
Mm.
And but so if we don't have that level of understanding, and we know that we are all fighting a very big, we're all faced with a very big blue whale, or how will I call it, you know, then we know that we have to come together, because no one person can deal with the issues that have been unpacked in that no even two or a
Yeah.
group of people can do it. We need an army from the to come at different levels to come and solve these issues that people are highlighting.
Oh well.
And yeah, it's just two committee discussion we've had. You can imagine if we have 10.
Right. Well. I think we will encourage more of those discussions because it's really important. But where I want us to go to now is particularly on the vaccines. In terms of the uptake of the vaccines, I know you've spoken about it there, but I want us to just be specific about it. From your research, what percentage of the population, when we are talking the population, I mean in terms of the African and the Afro-Caribbean and the Caribbean society, what percentage of the population have taken everything up to date till is it the third booster now or the first booster? We've had the first jab, second jab, then booster. Okay, yeah. So what percentage have taken up to that? What percentage have taken just one or two? What were the reasons given for those who have not taken?
Okay. So for my studies specifically, those that have
Hmm.
taken the three boosters. So don't forget my studies. Anybody who participates 18 years and above,
Yeah.
So and about over around 408 responses
Okay.
to the survey, from the African and Caribbean communities, but mostly the African communities.
Okay.
And about 48% from our data, 48% are fully vaccinated, and it's
Okay.
comparable to Public Health Scotland data that suggests that about 41%. I know there's still much difference.
Hmm.
Public Health Scotland data says 41, but our participant from our participants 8%.
Okay.
But it also shows that another 18% haven't taken the vaccine at all, not even one dose.
18.
18% haven't taken at least one dose. Yes, and about 25% have just and no. So there's 18 for one dose, about 25 for two doses. Then we have about 48 thereabout um for
Fully one.
for the full boosters.
Okay, so let's focus on the ones who have taken one or two. I mean, from your research, did they state reasons for not going ahead to take at all, or why they've only taken one and not the second one, or why they've only taken two and not the third shot?
Yeah, so the people that have taken the first dose and didn't go for the second dose were people who mainly had a bad experience from
Right.
what our study is suggesting. So let's say they're taking the first dose and they couldn't, walk for, or they couldn't, really do what they were doing.
Hmm.
And I remember one of the participants was saying that, when the wife took the dose, he couldn't cook for the family. They had to discourage her from taking the vaccine again, but it was still her choice. But, and another reason people are not going further, especially from the second dose to the third dose, is that they tend to say that they don't see any difference between those that have taken it and those that haven't taken it.
Mm.
Because what they will say is that even those that have taken it still fall sick, can still die, and can still be hospitalized. So why would they bother taking it at all?
Mm. Right. I mean,
And again, yeah, and just one last thing for those who have taken the suggest is that some people feeling like they've had enough. Like two is okay for me. I've done my bit, and that is it. I'm not taking anymore. So those were the things between the first and the second dose, and why people haven't transitioned to the third one.
right. I see. Okay. So looking at that, because I've just been writing the figures down there as you're saying it. Okay, because of the reactions from their system to it, some of them are not going back. Do we have situations whereby the reason for not going back is as a result of these conspiracy theories?
I mean, a lot of people report that they've heard conspiracy theory. Most people say they don't buy into it, but I think the conspiracy theory alone, it's not. Well, I can't say, but one of the things that came out from our discussion so far is that family members were quite influential if somebody took the vaccine or not.
Right.
In our community discussion in Glasgow, you could see how one of the participants was talking about how the children had to hide her appointment later
Yeah.
so that she wouldn't go and take it. People advising their spouse not to take it. And, most people listen to family members because you know that these people love you, they care for you, they have your genuine interest at heart. And when they're saying these things to you, sometimes it can be hard for you to ignore. So so we're having family members discourage people. So again, and some of the stories increase the use to shape that argument is the conspiracy you're asking me about, whether the conspiracy had an influence, especially if it came from trusted family members.
Hmm.
I don't know if you understand me.
Yeah.
So if somebody saw a conspiracy on social media, for example, it wouldn't really have much impact like when, let's say, your spouse is telling you that and discouraging you from taking it.
Hmm.
So the conspiracy has to interact with something else for it to have that kind of significant impact on your decision making.
I see. So the other thing that comes to my mind from the thing different materials I've read, I know Public Health Scotland made a report about the fact that there's been significantly increased COVID-19 hospitalization then and deaths amongst the BME population compared to the white Scottish people. And they also stated that, well, the growing consensus is that the fundamental cause for these adverse pandemic outcomes for the BME group is rooted in long-standing, pre-existing social, economic, and health inequalities, including those driven by discrimination and racism. Is there, are these factors seen in your research at all? I mean, things like, all those things we mentioned, like the socioeconomic status of the people of the BME groups, the health inequalities, discrimination and racism. Have you seen any of these at all in any part of your research?
Yes, very strongly. So of the community discussion, I'm going back to that community discussion because you were there, and you could see how some people, in fact, in one of the one-to-one interview I had, somebody was explaining why some people wouldn't do a PCR test, and the reason was that they were on 0 hour contract, and therefore they wouldn't do a PCR even if they felt sick or they knew they had COVID. They wouldn't do a PRC test because if you did a PRC test, it means you won't have to go to work.
Mm.
Do you understand? So they would rather go infecting people, them even having the knowledge that they had COVID or not. So
Okay.
they are not intending not take them in, or they're not intending not to isolate. Is the condition, you know,
Okay, so let us compare that now to a white Scottish person. A white Scottish person on 0 hour contract will surely take the PCR test. Maybe, let's say maybe. So I'm just trying to understand what's the motivation of not wanting to take it, because yeah, fine, you're on 0 hour contract. Is it the fact that if you don't go to work? I mean, I just want to understand what's behind that. What's the real underlying factor to that?
If you're on a 0 hour contract, it means no work, no pay. So you're paid by the hour.
Okay.
So and you're not, your contract does not subject your employer to pay you if you don't work. Unlike
Okay.
people who are on a full-time employment, whether you work or not, they pay you, right?
Right.
For 0 hour contract, because there's no contractual obligation on the part of your employer, as long as you don't show up, you don't get paid. So whether you're sick,
Yeah, I mean that is well known and established and well defined. What I'm trying to find out is that, is it also because they don't have recourse to public fund to benefit, to the fact that, oh, if
yeah,
I
there's
don't
no,
go for this job and get this job and get it done, I don't have any other source of money, any other source of livelihood.
yeah, there's no alternative. Yes. So there's no
Oh,
alternative. So like someone who has recourse to public fund, if you can't go to work, you can claim some benefit for unemployment.
yeah.
But if you don't have any recourse to public funds, you have to either rely on your friends or family or charity for you to survive.
Right. Right,
Yeah,
right. I mean, these are good points. I wish we had some of the political, I mean, the elected political officers today as guests on the show. But surely, we will look into the future where we have you there, we'll have them there, and we'll be throwing these questions around, and we need to try to understand it well, because I mean, why I really had to ask that question is that, okay, yeah, we know you're on 0 hour contract. It's not only black ethnic minority people who have 0 hour contracts, but behind it, the truth of the matter, from what I've heard now, is that yes, you may be a white Scots person, you're on 0 hour contract. If you don't go to work, maybe you get infected. Yeah, you can still go back to get unemployment benefit and things like that. But for someone who is from the BME community, you may not
yeah,
have
you're
that
infected.
because of your
Yeah,
immigration status.
yes,
Okay,
yes.
and,
And don't forget the Scottish, yeah, the Scottish BME community is more of a because have come here through migration. So we're just having the young ones that are born, born Scottish here. So a lot of the population is still still came in Scotland through migration. So
yeah,
the visa,
absolutely.
yeah, has a lot of impact. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that draws their attention to the fact that, okay, I know the Queen's Jubilee is what we are marking from. I mean, we've started marking it from this week, and one thing that is very, very unique to this celebration is the Commonwealth of Nations. And when you look at Scotland and look at the BME community, many of those in that community are from the Commonwealth. Does it mean the Scottish government should start looking at, or even the UK government should start looking at a way of easing things for people from this community?
Oh, sorry, I didn't pick the last point. I think
Okay,
you kind
so
of froze
so I
there.
was just saying that. So looking at the way how the Commonwealth of Nations connect so much to the Queen,
Mm.
is it time for the UK government and even the Scottish government to start looking at better ways of making things easy for members of the BME community?
The government is for the people, right? So whether they are migrant community or whether they are settled or they are born Scottish or they migrated Scottish, the government is for the people, and you have responsibility to everybody. It's just like being a father, right? And everybody under your roof is your responsibility. They are your children or not, you know. So the Scottish government, First Minister, Buhari. Buhari is your president if you're in Nigeria, but when you
Hmm.
Nicholas Sturgeon. So I think the no, I think it's something we need to bring again to the attention. You know, because we know that the government, some of the policies that were put in place is there to discourage people from settling in. They're trying to control immigration, and from their perspective, is fair. Because they want to make sure that they are they are the dominant population and all that. But it's important for policymakers to realize that you're the government for the people, not for the majority.
Anyway, because why I know you're not a politician. I know you're a researcher, and I know that's why you have to answer it the way you've answered. But why I asked that question is because, I mean, I look at it, whether you came in as a migrant worker or as an international student, you've brought something into the economy. You pay your school fees, you buy things, you spend your money here. Even if you work, you are helping the government to raise funds because you'll be taxed and everything. So shouldn't that be given people? When I say people, I'm talking about people who are international students, migrate, workers who have migrated here, especially those from the Commonwealth of nations. Should that not be giving them more opportunities in this land?
Yeah, I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, everybody should have the opportunity to thrive, and
Okay,
that's very important. To our, isn't it?
good. I mean, like I said, I just needed to ask you that question. So let's go back to research a bit, okay? Let's go back now to research. So, you've had the Glasgow discussion, expert discussion. You've had the Edinburgh one. When is the Aberdeen one taking place?
Okay, so the Aberdeen one is taking place on the 23rd of July. And
23rd of
we're
July. Okay.
yeah, it's taking us time because the team is the team is going on break. We need to be a full house with our events.
Okay.
So we're dealing with timeline issues, and the July period is usually the summer break. So a lot of us have had holidays booked in, and also
Nah.
we need to also work with our host organization as well, work with their timeline. So and that's why it's taking us some time to get this organized. But I think it's a good thing as well because it gives us time to reflect on what those in Glasgow have told us and also what those in Aberdeen has told us. And interestingly, it's beginning to inform policy already.
Oh.
Immediately after the Edinburgh event, Public Health Scotland contacted me that they want to work with me for them to see what they can learn immediately from this discussion. And they've been fair
Okay.
in that respect, wanting to listen more, wanting to know what they can do. So even if they might not be able to solve all the problem at once, but at least they're listening and they're looking at ways. Don't forget the government too is very bureaucratic, so they cannot just get up and say, "I will do this today and tomorrow is done." So it's a process through and get it approved at different levels as well. But the good thing is that they're keen on it. They've been present in all discussion, as you saw the other day. The two of them present in the Glasgow event, and they've been sharing the insight from that conversation very widely within Public Health Scotland.
All right.
So I think, yeah,
Well, it's good. It's good
and
to hear that, and it's good to know that. Yeah, go on, please. Go on.
no, and like Harry told us in the discussion in Glasgow, that is our opportunity as a community to come together to say what we want. And when I was speaking to the same thing, he told me organize ourselves. We need to find a way to organize because if you look at the community, we are diverse, there are different groups, there's different community groups, the charity organization, the constituted, the unconstituted ones. Which is a great thing. If there's so many things, if there's so many groups catering for different people, I think it's an advantage. But at some point, we need to see how we can organize. And we're not trying to put one ahead of the other. It's all about how we organize ourselves within the and how we can make sure that our views are heard. And that's why we need you're a politician, even if you've not been elected yet, but you can still act as in your capacity. I mean, with your experience, you could still stand on behalf of the BME community because we don't have a lot of people representing us. So my question to you is, what are you going to do about the conversation you heard in Glasgow? So
Oh,
it's not just a
wonderful.
oh yeah, because it's not
This
it's
is
not
this
just
is this is the Nigerian pride anchored by Lion Olu Shokunbi. When Dr. Joe brings up the research show, I will come and answer that. Anyway, no, that's a good point you've made there. Actually, it's a very, very strong and good point. And with all seriousness, and I believe many people are listening at the moment. With all seriousness, I mean, it's time for everyone from the African and the Caribbean community to actually come together. It's time to come together, speak in one voice. It does not matter, what your organization represents or what party you belong to or what group you belong to. But for the future of the children we have now, it's time for us to come together and start speaking with one voice, get policies amended because our views are heard and everything. And I believe, yes, we the work has started. We just all have to come together, whether you are whether you're a CIC person or you are a constituted charitable body or not, or an association, or an individual doing excellently well. We all have to come together and push forward. Sorry. Hello? I
no, I
thought you were
said
saying something.
yeah, and I was saying even a group of friends, you don't have to be an
Yeah.
organization.
Yeah,
Oh,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And I mean, one last thing I would like to ask, just before we go now, is that, so where will we go from here? So, because I know this research has opened up so many places of questions.
Yeah.
Where are we going from here? The intention first was to see the challenges, the concerns, the issues, the impact of COVID in the BME community. But now, with everything coming up, it seems we have a whole lot to deal with. So,
Yeah.
what's the next research plan, if there is any at all?
Yeah. So I was speaking to a professor yesterday I was interviewing as part of my film. And what I was telling him that look, the more bottomless the problem. It seems to be so big, and it's not an issue for one person.
Yeah.
So first of all, we need to put our house in order. We need to come together, and we need to recognize the problem. I don't think I don't myself. I didn't realize there was so much problem until I began my research. I didn't realize that. It's important for us as a community to know the problems that we're having. This is not Nigeria. That are made by evidence. If you're going to change policy, you need evidence. It's time for you. I mean, you might not be interested in research, but you can participate in research.
Absolutely.
When you see surveys, when you see interviews, just help us. Just help us, including you and your
Hmm.
children, feel it and see what you can do from an individual perspective. Just participate, and in your own space, whether you're a person, whether you're working in an organization, just see what you can do to make your shine within your organization. It doesn't matter who you're influencing. Just make your light shine in your own little corner. From the public health perspective, they are unraveling a number of discussions, and there's going to be so many discussions that will follow until we nail down things that need to be done. And like I said, the problem is so big. It's so big that, even before you start feeling the impact, it may take a while, but it's not happening. Behind the scene, things are happening. People are listening. And from the research perspective, what this research suggests is that we need to be looking beyond COVID or vaccine. It shows to us that there are a lot of inequity issues when it comes to health. And all these issues are linked to the broader issues around disadvantage, discrimination, and racism, which also needs to be unpacked. So from the research perspective, we are doing that. African scholars, we're talking to ourselves and see how we can do from our own perspective and putting to try to get in more money to do more research, because it's through this research that Public Health Scotland will listen to me. They won't listen to me because I'm Dr. Joe.
Yeah.
They will only listen to me because I have the authority of the research to provide something of value, valuable insight for them to work with. So from my own perspective as a researcher, or from our perspective as academic, including yourself, though, is to continue to continue to apply for grants to see how you can develop your research. Trying to achieve with that is to make sure that the policy people understand our priorities and what they can do to resolve that. And that is my own task as an academic person, or anybody in academia. But the issue is not for academics only. You like all the politicians, like yourself, Doc, like yourself. I know most of you didn't win, and which is not, which is it's not a bad thing. But since you didn't win, what are you doing with the space that you have before the next election? Are you going to go back home? The problem that we have, what are you going to do about it?
It's a good question you've asked again. It's a good question you've asked again. But the thing is,
no, I think, Doc, I know our time is almost off. So I think you and the other people who contested, you're in a good position. I mean, because you have that visibility now. You're in good position to galvanize a positive movement, to see how the community. And the good thing here is that you don't need to be in position to speak. You can email Nicola Sturgeon. Do you know that? Her office will pick it up and process it.
We know.
So if we have that kind of problem and we have people like you, what are you doing with that space before the next election? Are you going to go home? Or are you going to come?
Those are things we will talk about, but really not on the show. These are things we have to talk about when we start having those community discussions, and that's where we too will be able to share our experience, and then we see how we move on as a community. But on that note, I've seen my producer there changing her face and changing her eyes, and even I myself, I'm looking towards Hamden. But I want to say a big thank you to you, Dr. Joe. Thank you so much for the work you're doing, especially. Thank you so much, and thank you for having time to come to us. Hopefully we'll be bringing you back again soon. Hopefully we'll be able to get some guests in from the Scottish government, from the political parties, and we can have a real good discussion where we can table all this and move forward. Thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Doc.
Right, so there you have it, everyone. We've talked about the research. You've heard about what this research is bringing out already. I've been challenged already on the show by Dr. Joe, and I'm sure other colleagues across the board who actually took part in the local council election that just went there last month. I believe you've all heard that, and you've been called forward. So you need to act on it. We need to build on it. We need to see what we can do to help our community. But before we go tonight, I must say this. Today, Scotland, in fact, in some minutes to go, Scotland will be playing Ukraine, and we will be all the way supporting the Tartan Army to victory tonight. We're wishing the Scottish football team all the best in tonight's game, and hopefully the 24-year wait will be over. And we'll take this game, we'll win this game tonight and go to Cardiff and win Wales, and we'll be at the cup finals in Dubai, the UAE. Is it the UAE? I've forgotten. Qatar, sorry, it's Qatar. Right, so all the best to the Tartan Army tonight. I'll be joining you as well. Very soon we'll all meet together. Next week, we will be reviewing the last council election. We'll be talking about Partygate. We'll be talking about where are we going to in the UK. Do you think there's a possibility of a snap general election? Do you think by Monday, that's next week, do you think there will be an announcement of the Prime Minister's leadership of the Tory party being challenged? What do you think? We'll be discussing all of that next week on the show. Be there by 6 p.m. On that note, I am Olu Shokunbi saying have a good evening. Bye for now.